Derby, of course, is Kentucky, from mint juleps to the playing of my old Kentucky home. The Preakness is Baltimore, from crab cakes to the playing of Maryland, my Maryland. And similarly, the Belmont Stakes is New York, from the cab driver's accent when he brings you out here to the playing of the sidewalks of New York, which will be coming up quite soon. There is, of course, no horse going for the Triple Crown this year, but this race, like the other two, can very easily stand alone. Many people, in fact, think that this is the Turnus test, to ask 3-year-old horses, many of whom have already been in the Derby and in the Preakness, to come here and run that far, 1.5 miles at this early age in their careers. And 1.5 miles on this track is just once around because it's the longest race course in America. This continues to be the springtime of the senior citizen in American sport, from Jack Nicklaus to Whittingham and Shoemaker and so forth. In fact, at the breakfast here just the day before yesterday, we had 3 trainers, all of whom have horses in this race. Charlie Whittingham, age 73, Woody Stevens, 72, and Walt Kelly, who at age 79 has his first entry in the Belmont Stakes. Let's take a look right now as the odds in the race as they stand right now. The colors on the left of your screen next to the horse number, that's the saddlecloth number, indicates the colors of the racing silks that the jockey of that horse will be carrying. Bobby Forbes at 20-1, Bordeaux Bob at 16-1, and Parade Marshal at 17-1. All are long shots. Mogambo, one of the favorites, at 4-1. Personal Flag at 7-1. 5 more horses. John's Treasure at 9-2. A good deal of support for Walt Kelly's horse. Ferdinand at 9-2, and Danzig Connection at 7-1. Imperious Spirit at 55-1. But look at this. Rampage, surprisingly, is the favorite in the race at 5-2. Out on the track right now is our reporter on the track, Charles E. Canty. A little damp out there. Perhaps you, Charles, can give us a more specific report on the racetrack.
I can give you a very specific report, Jim. This track is pure-T sloppy. But bear in mind that Belmont Park is a very sandy composition, and it has a very firm base, and moisture only makes it faster. So the earlier races today, speed has been holding up, and the times have been sprightly. It's raining pretty good. The track is not going to slow up any. It'll be quick. Back to you, Jim.
The driest of our ABC Sports team today, I think, at least at the moment, will be Jack Whitaker, because he's in the jockey room with the man of the moment in many ways, the man who won the Derby at age 54, Bill Shoemaker.
Thank you, Jim. Bill, you and Ferdinand were 20 lengths out and came from behind to win the Derby. You were 14 lengths out and came second in the Preakness. Should we assume that you might not be quite that far back today?
I doubt if he'll be that far back, but again, it depends on the pace, Jack. If the pace is very fast, he'll be back, and if it's slow, he'll be laying a lot closer than he would be.
Well, no horse likes to get mud slapped in his face, does he?
No, they don't, and of course, he's never had any mud slapped in his face because he's never run in the mud, so that's an unknown thing that we'll just have to find out whether he likes it or not.
And the distance, he seems to be bred for it, though, doesn't he?
Oh, I think he'll get the trip all right.
How many sets of goggles are you going to wear?
I'm going to wear about 4.
Okay. There were a lot of rumors about him being scratched because of track conditions, but this, as Charlie said, is not a slow track at all.
No, it's got a good bottom on it, Jack. The only thing that we're going to have to worry about is if he gets a hold of it and he likes it, and if he can handle the mud slapping in his face. That's the 2 problems that we worry about a little bit.
Okay, and you're going for a 6th, the record-tying 6th Belmont. Good luck. Have a safe trip.
Thank you, Jack.
All right. Once again, here's Jim McKay.
Okay, and I'm sure watching eagerly at home in California is Amanda, his little daughter, whom he greeted after winning the Kentucky in this Belmont Stakes in the year 1880. Nowadays, of course, every race on every program gets a post parade. Number 1 is Bobby Forbes, ridden by Vince Brashali out of Maryland. He has won in the mud. He won the General George Stakes at Pimlico in this kind of going, but was disqualified from first place. 4th in the Jersey Derby behind Snow Chief. Likes to eat peppermints, this guy. Number 2, another long shot, is Bordeaux Bob. He won the Count Fleet in the mud at Aqueduct in the month of January of this year. Was claimed for $37,500 earlier in his career. Number 3 from the Green Tree Stable, which is attempting to win its 5th Belmont Stakes, is Parade Marshal. He was a good 3rd to Danzig Connection 13 days ago in the Peter Pan Stakes. Could have a chance. Number 4, one of the favorites here, is Mogambo, owned by Peter Brandt, trained by Leroy Jolly. Jockey Jose Santos is the leading rider at Belmont right now. He won the Champagne Stakes here last fall on this track, however, has been very inconsistent since then. Most recently was a good 2nd to Snow Chief in the Jersey Derby. Number 5, Personal Flag, was unraced as a 2-year-old, but now has won 3 races in a row, the last by 5.5 lengths. George Velasquez up. Number 6, John's Treasure. That's old Walt Kelly's horse, ridden by the great Lafitte Pinkai Jr. He also was unraced as a 2-year-old. Number 7, the Kentucky Derby winner, Ferdinand, second in the Preakness Stakes to Snow Chief Bill Shoemaker up. You know that story by now. And there is the man at age 54 still riding on in perhaps the greatest career of any jockeys in the history of the American turf. Number 8 is Woody Stevens' horse, Danzig Connection, with another top rider, Chris McCarron, in from California. He was third in the mud in an allowance race here last August. That's his one appearance in this kind of conditions. Danzig Connection won his first stakes race, though, just 13 days ago here in the Peter Pan. Number 9, long shot Imperious Spirit, was second in the California Derby to Vernon Castle, but recently finished no better than 7th in the Will Rogers at Hollywood Park. But his connections think he has a shot, and Ruben Hernandez is riding him. Number 10, the favorite in the race, and that's something of a surprise, is Rampage, winner of the Arkansas Derby in extremely fast time on a track very much like this one, on a sloppy track. Rampage, ridden by Pat Day. He has been unraced since he had a very difficult trip in the Kentucky Derby. Can he win with that long a layoff? Well, no horse has in the Belmont Stakes in more than 30 years. By the way, Rampage was bought at auction for $18,000 because he had a turned-out rear hoop despite his great breeding. So it's almost time for the race. Let's take another break. We'll be back. Hardtack, of course. Bill, pretty tough for you to call under these weather conditions, but how do you see the race?
Well, Jim, the biggest factor is a mile and a half. If you have a horse in here that can't go a mile and a half, he doesn't have any chance at all. So you really, no matter what you do on a horse like that, it's not going to pay off. You're going to come up lacking. And that's one of the reasons why I like Ferdinand. I think he can go a mile and a half. His only difficulty is perhaps the mud. Not so much the footing. The footing is firm. But that dirt hitting a horse in the face, a young horse that's not used to it, could create a vision problem. You know, they don't wear goggles like jockeys do. They do pick up weight coming from behind, so that could be a factor against him. Rampage, again, is another horse that I think loves the distance of ground, likes the mud, has run well in the mud, but 5-week layup, it'd be a great, tremendous training job if he wins, and he has a chance. To me, a long shot in the race that could show up really nice, Parade Marshal. I like the way he looked in a paddock. He's been primed for this race. I look for a surprising performance out of him.
And of course, we don't know that Ferdinand can't run in the mud. He's never run in it.
That's true, but the factor that Bill Shoemaker came up, that dirt in the face, a horse will tend not to extend himself if he's blinded, if he's not used to it. And a young horse is like this, it could affect him.
Or it could affect any of the others, of course. Okay, now the favorite in the betting, remember, and something of a surprise, is Rampage, the winner of the Arkansas Derby. That's his jockey, of course, Pat Day, who both of them come out of the Southwest. We talked to Pat Day a little bit earlier and talked to him about his chances in this kind of going.
Well, it certainly won't hurt him, whereas it might hurt some of the others. He won the Arkansas Derby on a very, very sloppy racetrack. I mean, it come a downpour that afternoon at Oakon, and he handled the footing very good. The slop coming back in his face, I was a little concerned about that. You know, a lot of times a horse, the first time they run into it, don't really like it, and consequently they don't run well. But he done everything right that afternoon, handled the racetrack well, and so I don't think that if it rains that the slop, the bad racetrack, would affect him any.
Back on horseback again is Charlesy Canny. Charlesy, what is the scene out there now?
The horses are approaching the starting gate. It is still very sloppy, and in only a few moments we'll find out whether Ferdinand likes the mud or not. There's an old adage on the racetrack: if a horse likes the mud, he needs no help. If he doesn't like the mud, there's no help for him. We'll know in about 2.5 minutes. Jim?
Well, again, we have 3 horses in here trained by men in their 70s. If only Henry Clark were up from Maryland with a horse in the race at age 80, we'd have a real meeting of Horse Trainers Hall of Fame at the summit. But now they're moving into the starting gate. You saw number 1, Bobby Forbes, going in. We have a microphone, by the way, on starter Frank Calvarich. You'll be hearing him as they go into the starting gate. 10 horses. Nobody was scratched, remember. Number 5 there is Personal Flag, owned by Ogden Phipps. Let's go up now to Marshall Cassidy. Marshall?
Okay, Jim. We have a few horses still to go into the gate. See behind the gate now, Ferdinand, winner of the Kentucky Derby, as John's Treasure is being loaded. Here's some of the action as they load this horse into the gate. It takes several assistant starters to do that, but it is successful. Ferdinand now goes in. There's Woody's horse, Danzig Connection. Danzig Connection now. There goes Imperious Spirit. Winner of the Arkansas Derby in the slot. Rampage about to go in. Okay. They're all in line. It is now post time. They're all in line. And they're off. Mogambo is going for the lead. Surprisingly, on the outside, there goes a speed horse also. Danzig Connection has moved into second. Then it's Imperious Spirit. John's Treasure on the inside. Then Ferdinand between horses. Again on the inside, Bobby Forbes. On the outside is Rampage. Then Parade Marshal, Personal Flag. And Bordeaux Bob on the rail is in 10th. They enter the clubhouse turn. We'll soon see the quarter time for this race. 23-1. It is a fast pace. Mogambo has the lead by a bit more than a length, and it's Danzig Connection second by about 4. Then John's Treasure is third on the rail. On the outside, Imperious Spirit is fourth, gaining a bit. About a length to Ferdinand, with Shoemaker on the rail, moving up also. The outside is Parade Marshal, about 3 to Bobby Forbes. Then Rampage, Bordeaux Bob, and a Personal Flag is now 10th. They're on to the backstretch, the half in 47-4. The pace has eased a bit. But Mogambo continues to lead by a bit more than a length. Danzig Connection on the outside is second to by a length. Ferdinand on the rail is in third. Danzig Connection is gaining ground on the outside, only a half off of Mogambo. Also right there is John's Treasure alongside Ferdinand. On the outside again is Parade Marshal in fifth. Then Imperious Spirit, Bobby Forbes, Bordeaux Bob, Rampage, and Personal Flag. Breakwaters 12-4. The pace is still slowing as Danzig Connection gains on the outside of Mogambo. They are now heads apart. Right behind them on the rail is Ferdinand with Shoemaker. Danzig Connection on the outside. Mogambo on the rail. Now it's Danzig Connection taking the lead. Mogambo is second by a half. Now Ferdinand has moved to the outside. Ferdinand is now taking second. Gaining ground. Farther out, John's Treasure. They round the far turn. The mile 38-1. Danzig Connection, Ferdinand, John's Treasure vying for the lead. Mogambo is back into fourth as they approach the top of the stretch. Danzig Connection has a neck in front. On the outside, Ferdinand and John's Treasure, they enter the stretch. Danzig Connection still leads narrowly. Ferdinand on the outside, challenging that lead. Farther out is John's Treasure. On the rail is Personal Flag moving into fourth as Danzig Connection now draws clear. This is going to be the fifth Belmont for Woody Stevens. John's Treasure on the outside of Ferdinand. Danzig Connection has the lead. It is Danzig Connection winning by a length and a half. Congratulations, Woody Stevens. Then a photo for place and show between John's Treasure and Ferdinand. Personal Flag was fourth in the 8th race, the Belmont Stakes here in New York. The time on the board, 2 minutes 29 and 4/5 seconds. Back to you, Jim McKinney.
Unbelievable. That's the only word for it. Woody Stevens has won his 5th Belmont Stakes in a row at age 72. That's the Kwiatkowski, Henrik the Kwiatkowski, the owner, hugging Woody. It's something that has never happened in the history of the American turf, really. The man started this streak at age 68 at a time when he was talking about retiring. Now, my goodness, he may go on forever. 5 Belmonts in a row. For a trainer to even have 5 horses run in 5 Belmonts in a row would be an achievement. To win 5 in a row, well, you've seen it happen. The rider, Chris McCarron, and that is the first Triple Crown victory in the illustrious career of Chris McCarron, who came out of Massachusetts, started his career in Maryland, and is one of the top riders in California now. Danzig Connection, the son of the remarkable young sire Danzig. The time, 2:29 4/5, is way off the world record and stakes record of 2:24. Let's go to Charlesie Canty now. Charlesie.
In the excitement over Woody's 6th Belmont, let's not lose sight of the fact that this is Chris McCarron's first classic win and a remarkable riding career. Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you, Charlesie. Boy, that was exciting.
I'll bet. The speed in the mud was true today, yes?
Oh, absolutely. It's been true the last couple days. So Woody just said, get him running, leave him there, see if anybody is desperate to make the lead. If they are, just lay second or third. And I had a lot of horse under me the whole way. I never had to ask him to run till past the 8th pole. When I did, he accelerated very well.
Congratulations, Chris. Exciting ride. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, congratulations to Woody and to Kwiatkowski and to Chris McCarron and, of course, to Danzig Connection. Bill, let's take a look at the stretch run now. It was a real horse race coming into the stretch.
Yes, it sure was. Shoemaker had Ferdinand in a very good position, up a little bit closer than usual, and really didn't have any excuse turning for home. The horse ran a good race, but was beaten. Of course, Danzig's Connection, I don't know, that magic of Woody Stevens. I didn't honestly think Danzig Connection was as good as the other horses he's run here, but the rider had him in a good spot. And as Chris said, I had plenty of horse, and he ran well through the stretch. He was a well-deserved victory.
So often, of course, the winner of the Belmont will be a fresh horse, won't he? One that hasn't been through that long, grueling Triple Crown series.
Well, they're starting to make a believer out of me.
And there he was, taking the lead with authority at this point. And watch John's Treasure, the horse of 79-year-old Walt Kelly on the outside, number 6, coming up on Ferdinand. Number 5, Personal Flag, in 4th place there.
Well, Personal Flag got a lucky break. He got through on the rail. They say the rail's deep. But, of course, that's a good performance for him to finish 4th. John's Treasure made his move the same time that Shoemaker did on Ferdinand. They both ran together. And, of course, John's Treasure out-knotted him for 2nd.
And, by the way, the horse who won is trained by the 72-year-old, the 2nd place horse by the 79-year-old, and the 3rd place horse by the 73-year-old. The springtime of the senior citizen continues. We'll be back. Result of the race still unofficial. There is no objection, however, or inquiry. Danzig Connection still the unofficial winner. Let's go to Jack Whitaker now.
All right, if you don't think it was muddy, take a look at this face here. Bill Shoemaker, you had him in great shape at the top of the stretch.
Yeah, he ran a good race. He actually, the first time he'd ever run in the mud, and he was laboring just a bit. He handled it all right, but he was laboring, and that made him get a little tired the last 16th of a mile because he had to fight it to get his feet under him.
It was a marvelous race, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a great race. Great.
Well, we'd like to thank you for putting a lot of joy into this year's Triple Crown. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd isn't bad, is it?
No, not at all, Jack. I'm very happy.
How many goggles were there?
I had 4.
4?
I needed all of them, too.
All right. Well, you go get cleaned up.
All right,
Thanks
Jack.
very much. Jim?
Well, he gave us a lot of joy, and there's pure joy up here on our platform right now. Woody, it has happened. 5 in a row. Congratulations on one of the great performances in the history of the turf.
Thank you, Jim. This horse, he looks so beautiful. I felt he had to run. I wasn't too sure about the track today, but I've always felt good horses run anywhere and any distance. And I guess this is a good horse.
Quickly now, it's official. Here are the prices, by the way. I'm sure you're interested in that. Danzig Connection paying $18. Is that $620 or $820? I can't. $820 and $540. And John's Treasure paying $640 and $460. Ferdinand $360. $380. Correction. That is $380 for a show the time 2:29 and 4. So Woody, did you really feel before the race today that your horse would win?
There was no better looking horse. There's no better trained horse than this horse coming to this race. He had done everything in the world I wanted him to do. I took the blinkers off him last time. He run very game. And I felt today if he could possibly handle the racetrack, he'd run big today.
Okay, thank you and congratulations. Congratulations, Chris McCarron. Come on in here just a little bit. You know, you and I were talking in the jockey's room this afternoon. All you want to talk about was golf. You had something else in the back of your mind, however, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. When you have to sit around that long, it's best. I think it's best to just think about everything else but the race, because you might get a little anxious and a little nervous too soon, you know. But Woody came down in the jock's room about the 6th race and just exuded confidence in this colt, so okay. I went out there and had a lot of confidence in him.
Let's take a look at the replay right now, Chris. Here they come.
He broke just a tiny bit slow. It felt like his back feet slipped a little bit, but he accelerated right away, and we had dynamite position going the first turn. Woody suggested that he's going to be close, and that if somebody desperately wants to lead, let him have it, and if not, we'll be out there cruising on our own. He said, just slow it down as much as you can, and we were going very comfortable the whole trip. And I never moved a muscle on this horse till the 8th ball, and I was so excited at that point. When I did ask him to run, he accelerated very well.
Okay, so as you say, no problems at any time. Placed just where you wanted him at this point?
That's correct. I was just making sure he wasn't catching too much of that slop in his face at this point, because he hasn't experienced that a great deal in the past, so I didn't want him backing up from this position. I was very comfortable where he was.
Okay, here they are in the middle of the backstretch. At this time, it looked like, well, you might have been a bit behind there. A bit too far, no?
Well, no, I'm only a length and a half off that colt, and I know I've got a lot of horse under me, so, and we still have a mile yet left to run, so I was not concerned with improving my position at this point.
Well, Gambo, of course, not having enough speed that you were afraid he might just run off with the race.
Well, I tell you, From the time I got in the first turn, I was never really concerned about him running off at the race because, as I mentioned, I did have a lot of horse. Anytime I felt like I needed some acceleration, I thought it would be there. Fortunately, it was. They ganged up a little bit on us at the half-mile pole over there, and he just accelerated on his own and went to the lead very comfortably. Once he got in front, he kind of pricked his ears a little bit and relaxed once more and saved himself until I put on the gas pedal again.
There you are on the outside moving up, but just behind you, here comes Ferdinand. Did you see him at this point?
I saw a horse. I was unaware it was him. I didn't know who it was, but I wasn't about to look back. I wasn't concerned who it was. I just knew I had a lot of horse.
Okay, still in the far turn and coming through the turn now. And there is Ferdinand still lurking behind Macombo, beginning to drop back behind you a little bit. And at this point, it looked very much like Ferdinand might take over the race.
Well, from this point on, I just wanted, if the colt wanted to accelerate from here, I was going to go ahead and let him without having to move my hands on him because I didn't want to be caught in a position of the horse getting a jump on me, turn for home, and slide me down in towards the rail where it's a little bit deeper. I just wanted to make sure I was keeping my horse in the best going, and fortunately, I had so much horse I could place him where I wanted to.
Okay, so it still looked like quite a horse race at the head of the stretch.
Well, I still haven't moved on him yet, and I was so excited at this point that I thought I was home.
Did you see John's Treasure on the rail there moving?
I heard a horse coming. Again, I didn't know exactly who it was, but he just accelerated. As soon as I moved my hands, there was immediate response.
Look at John's Treasure on the outside here.
Yeah, he finished very well.
He,
John's Treasure ran a big race. For an inexperienced colt, first time going that far, it was a big race.
Chris, your first classic win. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jim.
Henrik, somebody told me once, I think it might have been a guy named Stevens, that you're the luckiest man he ever met. Seems to be continuing.
Well, it seems to be reciprocity. I just lost my voice from joy of having Woody, my trainer. I was lucky having him.
Okay. Wouldn't you know, at the moments when you got something to say, you would lose your voice. Congratulations to all of you.
I lost my voice, but I want to thank you for recognizing.
Okay, thank you all, and congratulations very much. The official order of finish in the Belmont Stakes. Danzig Connection, the official winner. John's Treasure, Walt Kelly's horse, second. Charlie Whittingham's Ferdinand, third. Personal Flag, fourth. Bobby Forbes was fifth. And rounding out the field, Mogambo finally finished sixth. The free race favorite, Rampage, was seventh. Then Bordeaux Bob, Parade Marshal, and Imperious Spirit. That's the way it was at Belmont. 9-2, a good deal of support for Walt Kelly's horse. Ferdinand at 9-2, and Danzig Connection at 7-1, Imperious Spirit at 55-1. But look at this, Rampage, surprisingly, is the favorite in the race at 5-2. Out on the track right now is our reporter on the track, Charles E. Canty. A little damp out there. Perhaps you, Charles E., can give us a more specific report on the racetrack.
I can give you a very specific report, Jim. This track is pretty sloppy. But bear in mind that Belmont Park is a very sandy composition and it has a very firm base, and moisture only makes it faster. So the earlier races today, speed has been holding up and the times have been sprightly. It's raining pretty good. The track is not going to slow up any. It'll be quick. Back to you, Jim.
The driest of our time of the senior citizen in American sport, from Jack Nicklaus to Whittingham and Shoemaker and so forth. In fact, at the breakfast here just the day before yesterday, we had three trainers, all of whom have horses in this race. Charlie Whittingham, age 73, Woody Stevens, 72, and Walt Kelly, who at age 79 has his first entry in the Belmont Stakes. Let's take a look right now as the odds in the race as they stand right now. The colors on the left of your screen next to the horse number, that's the saddlecloth number, indicates the colors of the racing silks that the jockey of that horse will be carrying. Bobby Forbes at 20-1, Bordeaux Bob at 16-1, and Parade Marshal at 17-1. All are long shots. Mogambo, one of the favorites, at 4-1. Personal Flag at 7-1. 5 more horses. John's Treasure at NBC Sports team today, I think, at least at the moment, will be Jack Whitaker, because he's in the jockey room with the man of the moment in many ways, the man who won the Derby at age 54, Bill Shoemaker.
Thank you, Jim. Bill, you and Ferdinand were 20 lengths out and came from behind to win the Derby. You were 14 lengths out and came second in the Preakness. Should we assume that you might not be quite that far back today?
I doubt if he'll be that far back, but again, it depends on the pace, Jack. If the pace is very fast, he'll be back, and if it's slow, he'll be laying a lot closer than he would be.
Well, no horse likes to get mud slapped in his face, does he?
No, they don't, and of course, he's never had any mud slapped in his face because he's never run in the mud, so that's an unknown thing that we'll just have to find out whether he likes it or not.
And the distance, he seems to be bred for it, though, doesn't he?
Oh, I think he'll get the trip all right.
How many sets of goggles are you going to wear?
I'm going to wear about 4.
Okay. There were a lot of rumors about him being scratched because of track conditions, but this, as Charles said, is not a slow track at all.
No, it's got a good bottom on it, Jack. The only thing that we're going to have to worry about is if he gets a hold of it and he likes it, and if he can handle the mud slapping in his face. That's the two problems that we worry about a little bit.
Okay, and you're going for a 6th, the record-tying 6th Belmont. Good luck. Have a safe trip.
Thank you, Jack.
All right. Once again, here's Jim McKay.
Okay, and I'm sure watching eagerly at home in California is Amanda, his little daughter, whom he greeted after winning the Kentucky in this Belmont Stakes in the year 1880. Nowadays, of course, every race on every Derby, of course, is Kentucky, from mint juleps to the playing of my old Kentucky home. The Preakness is Baltimore, from crab cakes to the playing of Maryland, my Maryland. And similarly, the Belmont Stakes is New York, from the cab driver's accent when he brings you out here to the playing of the sidewalks of New York, which will be coming up quite soon. There is, of course, no horse going for the Triple Crown this year, but this race, like the other two, can very easily stand alone. Many people, in fact, think that this is the Turnus test, to ask 3-year-old horses, many of whom have already been in the Derby and in the Preakness, to come here and run that far, 1.5 miles at this early age in their careers. And 1.5 miles on this track is just once around because it's the longest race course in America. This continues to be the springtime